on that level, but we feared that this day would come. We feared that some of our people would be shot for no other reason than their race, and unfortunately that is exactly what occurred last week in Atlanta. And I've said to anyone who'd listen, it is madness to question a 21-year-old lunatic as to his motivations when we can see clear as day that this was a hate crime. Am I right? Of their race, that if you go to an Asian-owned business in an Asian community and you open the door, you know exactly who you're going to find. You know exactly who you're going to murder in this case. And as Evelyn said, we spent weeks in Atlanta, Georgia, making the case among the Asian American community that we needed to invest in our future, that we needed to get out and vote. And so it was deeply personal seeing these women's stories. I actually imagined, as I know Evelyn did, like, was there a chance that we met them when we were out among the community, knocking on doors, speaking in plazas? The Asian American community in Atlanta, if you have not been, it is amazing. I was blown away. I went down to Atlanta trying to make the case for Reverend Warnock and John Ossoff, who won and got Chuck Schumer to become Senate Majority Leader. And as Evelyn said, the entire country has many people to thank for that, but among them it is the Asian American voters of the state of Georgia. Asian Americans are 4.7% of the vote there. Do you think that did not make a difference in an election where there was a 1% margin and Asian Americans went 2-1 for the Democrats? I did do the vote, it's true. So spending time in Atlanta and then seeing the racism against our community become this murderous, this dark, has been very painful for all of us. It's been devastating and heartbreaking for so many of us. And the question is, are we going to make this mean something to our families, our community, and the country? Are we going to make these women's lives and passings mean something? Are we going to make them mean something, New York City? Asian Americans are here to stay. Asian Americans are just as American as everyone else. Asian Americans are just as And I do remember vividly growing up, son of immigrants here in New York State, and feeling like my Americanness was being challenged at every turn. There weren't many of us on TV. I remember I would bug my parents every time Connie Chung came on TV until eventually they got tired of it. And I want to give another shout out to some of the Asian American artists and creatives and creators who are here today and were making the case around the country. When I met the president, you were some of the first people that gave me the time of day, the Funk Brothers, who were right there. That their parents were not that excited about their career choices, the Asian American creatives, you know what I mean? It's probably somewhere with running for office. So we need to get behind and support our Asian American artists and creatives as they tell their stories and ours, am I right? That is actually part of the process of humanization. That is the part of the process of people seeing that we have goals, hopes, dreams, fears, struggles. We may not wear them the same way other folks do, but we have them nonetheless. There were a number of reasons I decided to run for president, but I will confess to you all, there were several. But one of them was that I thought I had an opportunity to make that presidential debate stage, and I thought about what having an Asian American face on that stage would mean to our community. I said, that would have been a game changer for me as a young person, as a child, seeing someone on that stage. And I didn't just make that stage once, I made that stage 7 times, beating out governors, senators, members of Congress, and our current mayor. limits to what Asian Americans can do in this country. That we are not meant to be relegated to some particular role that has been prescribed. That we can lead, we can dream, we can help this country make sense of what is happening to it and help bring people together. When I was in Atlanta, I had the privilege of visiting Martin Luther King's childhood home, and as well as the King Center with Martin Luther King's son, Martin III. And I do want to give a special shout out also to our black brothers and sisters who are here today and to express their We are so grateful in part because Asian Americans are not used to people sticking up for us, so thank you. On the front stoop of Dr. King's childhood home with his son, as he looked out at the view that he woke up to every day as a child. And his son said to me, on the left you can see there are very affluent houses, and on the right you can see that there are people who are struggling. And Martin Luther King III said, this is the view that inspired my father to try and address what he saw as the three evils of our time: racism, poverty, and war. And when I ran for president on universal basic income, I was the first person to say, this is not my idea. This is an idea that Martin Luther King put forward in his book, his 1967 book, Chaos Our Community. He said we need to help humanize an economy that is turning on more and more people. It was not my idea at all, it was Dr. King's idea. I'm so indebted to the black community for so much of what has happened over this last couple of years. Dr. King, his family, their vision, for whatever reason, has lain dormant over the last number of years. And I say to folks in the black community, I believe we have sanitized Dr. King's memory. We celebrate his birthday every year, and what do we see on TV and hear on the radio? I have a dream, I have a dream. We're going to climb the mountaintop together. And that gives us the mistaken sense that his dream has been realized, does it not? Is it not that, oh, he had a dream and here we are on the other side? But black people know better. Asian Americans know better. We all know that Dr. King's dream has not been realized at all. And that is going to be the work of everyone here and everyone around the country to help push our society forward to a point where we recognize everyone's intrinsic worth as a human being, as a mother, as a father, as someone who just wants to create a better life for themselves and their families. Just like the people who are children and men who want it for themselves. Most of them had just come to Atlanta over the last number of years, and they came with better hopes for themselves and their families. And to see their lives snuffed out. So one question I'd have for us all is, what now? What are we going to do? No, we're heartbroken, we're angry. We want people to sense our pain, our presence, the frustration we feel, that our problems have been suppressed for so long and that we've been told that we don't have it, the same as other groups, and just to accept our place in American life. But that's not us at all, is it, New York City? We're people of action, are we not? So I'm going to suggest a few things that I'm going to do as the next mayor of the greatest city in the world. One of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to fully fund the Asian Hate Crimes Task Force and the police. This is not an issue that you get the volunteers addressing. If crime against the community goes up 900%, you don't say, oh, we'll let volunteers take care of that. You dedicate resources until that problem feels like it is going down, not up. The second thing we need to do is call a hate crime a hate crime. When a woman gets shoved to the ground in front of us all and Flushing and is disfigured, that's a hate crime. When a man gets slashed on the subway because someone doesn't like the look of his face, that's a hate crime. A woman gets acid thrown in her face in Manhattan for no discernible reason, that is a hate crime. It is only by calling out these crimes as such that we can raise the proper level of attention and frankly prosecute them the way that they deserve, to send a message that there is no room for hate in New York City. With the Asian American community here in New York, because we know, you know, that for every incident we're hearing about, there are 2, 3, 5 others that we will never hear about. You know that an Asian American who's been punched, stabbed, beaten, stabbed, we'll probably know about, but punched, spit on, and other things is likely never to tell anyone. And we have to change that. We have to start building bonds of connection with the Asian American community to let them know that this city is theirs, this city is ours. And I'm going to suggest to you all that one great way to do that is by electing the first Asian American mayor in the history of New York City. Because you know I'll take it seriously. But these are things that frankly we can do at the public level, and this event today is not about the public level. It's about us each individually as human beings. And so what can we do? What we can do, and I'm going to take my friend Monty Williams, who I've been speaking alongside over this last number of days. What he says is, look, this starts with us individually. We have to take it upon ourselves to try to greet someone that we see every day that we would not have greeted otherwise. And often those are people that are going to be unseen, that are going to seem invisible. And you might surprise them initially, but over time they will start to see you as a human being that cares about them. They will start seeing themselves as human. If we start to acknowledge each other and our own humanity, then we can expand what it means to be part of a community. Will you all commit to greeting at least one person every day that you might not have greeted otherwise? We can expand the sense of fellowship to include folks who right now might look different than us, who might not think that they're the same, but we are the same. This is one of the lessons I got from visiting Dr. King's birthplace. I know there are people that are very passionate about this, but the fact is when someone gets stabbed, you need the police to follow up. That person should not be on the streets. Well, then the other thing I'm going to ask of you all is this, and this is something that I've had some experience with. This is the story that Noel Quintana told when he was on New York subway. He said that he was having a dispute with this person and that it started to elevate, and then eventually this person took out a box cutter and slashed his face, and you've all seen the picture. You all know what happened to Noel. And Noel said, with tears in his eyes, an event not that different from this one, not that was held a couple of weeks ago in Foley Square, not that far from here. Some of you were there. Raise your hand if you were there. And so if you were there, you remember what he said. He said with tears in his eyes, he said that there were people around and no one did anything. And he said with tears in his eyes, he said if someone even had just taken a video, then maybe we would actually have apprehended this person who right now is still free and walking the streets of New York City. Now, I've had some experience with this. I was in a situation where something was happening nearby me, and there is not really like time to think when you're in that situation. Like, I'm not going to present. It's like, oh, like, you know, like some people like are somehow, you know, going to make different decisions. But I will say that the commitment we all have to make, this is the best way for us truly to make each other safer, is that when something is happening around you, you have to do something. I want you to reflect on this, New York City. I want you to reflect on what it's going to feel like when you are a witness to something happening. Are you going to be the person that lets it happen, or are you going to be the person that does something? Noel Quintana has been asking that question. And that is the second commitment I'm going to ask of you all, New York City. If you see something, you have to do something. And if you do something, you'll be able to look yourself in the mirror when you get home at night and say, I did everything I could to help that person. And if you say that and you act on that and you make that commitment, then we have a real chance to rebuild from this, to reshape our community, to let people know that we all have so much more in common than divides us, that we are all human beings, and that Asian Americans should feel as safe walking down the streets of New York City as anyone else in this city. We are just as New York as anyone else. We need to make our voices heard, and if something is happening in our vicinity that we can do something about, we're damn well going to do something about it. Am I right, New York? So let's help each other, let's care about each other, and let's rebuild our community, which will include everybody, together. Thank you all so much. I love you, New York City.